president of the National Investigations Committee on Unidentified Flying Objects, headquartered in Van Nuys, California.
フランク・ストレンジャー博士、カリフォルニア州バンネイズに拠点を置く UFO 国家委員会の委員長である彼は、驚くことに国防総省内で自分は金星から来たと語る人物と接触したことがあると話す。また UFO は全て宇宙からの訪問者ではなく、人間の創造の産物であったり、ある国家の発明によるものも含まれている可能性があると指摘する。その根拠は、
It's the responsibility of world governments to conduct a true scientific investigation into the UFO phenomena and then present this information in total to the citizens of their particular nations and to be truthful with them. Now, no nation is doing that right now. Right now, we have entered a conspiracy of silence. In the UFO field, the silence, God knows for what reason, but the people have a right to know the truth, and that's what I believe. Here we have over 1,000 declassified sheets of paper that gives us fact, figures, names, dates, and places, not just in the United States, but other parts of the world, of UFO sightings, UFO communication, UFO abductions, all kinds of accounts, all kinds of stories, most of them reported by business and professional and military people. I would like to relate to you something that is in the CIA documents, and that is a meeting that I had at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. with a fellow who claimed to come from the planet Venus. And that's in the CIA documents. And not only has it been verified by the CIA, but also a gentleman who was an officer of the Project Blue Book, whose sole task it was to record with accuracy the fact that this man, Valiant Thor, landed in Alexandria, Virginia, on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., got into a police car, and was brought to President Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon. It's all a matter of record. According to the Air Force documents, there are still over 700 sightings in the United States every single week. That's an average of 100 a day. I have in my file certified documents released by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Notice the same type of format that's used by the CIA. They cross out the names of the individuals and sometimes the locations where some of these events took place. Thousands of declassified pages from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Two major United States federal agencies that have denied and even disavowed all knowledge or any interest about UFOs, and now because of the Freedom of Information Act, they're forced to release these pages to the public. We have a credibility gap here. Somebody is not telling the truth. And the big reason is, the big question is why? Why is this being withheld from the public? I went to Washington. I spoke to General Wiedemeyer at the Pentagon, and his answer to me was twofold. Number one, the fear of mass hysteria keeps the American government silent on UFOs. I don't believe that. The second reason given to me at the Pentagon was that if intelligent beings are coming from outer space, and they can show us how to get along without sickness, disease, and even death, I was quoted that this would completely ruin the economy of the United States and plunge us into a recession of which there'd never be a recovery. If intelligent people are coming from other worlds, at which they are, and they are showing us ways and means to improve our own society, I say thank God for it.
In 1982, while an investigator for the state of Idaho, we had a series of mutilations that were occurring with cattle mutilations. This is an occurrence that's been going on off and on and has been reported in the American press since at least 1967, when a very famous mutilation occurred down in Colorado with a horse by the name of Snippy. The mutilation, to be classified as a classic mutilation, involves an animal that has been, number one, the body fluids have been drained from the animal. Number two, there are a number of classic mutilation cuts that occur. Usually these encompass the removal of an eye or both eyes, partial removal of the skin and muscle from the face, the removal of the sexual organs from the animal, and in some cases a piece of hide which can encompass an area the size of several inches on each side will be excised from the animal. Not once, ever, has anyone been caught or prosecuted. When I came across the first human individual that had been found dead and mutilated with the very same characteristics as the animal mutilations, the very first thing I did was try to verify this to find if in fact there were any correlation between it. I had a very good friend who was a police detective with a municipal department in Idaho, run a check through NCIC, which is a National Crime Information Computer, headed by the FBI back in Washington, D.C. He showed him my text file, my news story on this, and he said, "This seems so ludicrous as to be unbelievable. Do me a favor and run a search on this." The man that was with the Department of Justice got back to him in 2 days, and he told him, and I have this on file, he said, "If I were you, I'd stay completely away from this. This is too hot to handle. If you contact me again, I'm going to have to report you to my superiors, my supervisors." And we're talking about two people that were best friends. So there is something to this subject that somewhere someone finds very troubling, and they don't want this to get out.
In 1965, I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed in Colorado Springs. And we were called out on a very exclusive mission, and we were said, "We do not know, as far as you will not know where you're going, and as far as that you will have people on board, and that you'll take care of them. And when you get to this destination, you're not to ask any questions, and whatever you hear or see there is to remain confidential, and in fact classified information." And here before my own eyes was a UFO and two beings. And what was just tremendously exciting about this whole thing is that it was real. And we had two senior Air Force officers on board. We had a high-tech scientist. We had a group out of Wright-Patterson, which was the science base of the Air Force. And just like I said, there was so much excitement. I could see the beings, and in describing them, I can only say, as far as the heads were larger than as we described them, very smooth, oval shaped and thinner down in this area. The eyes were larger, and what we would expect as a mouth was not a mouth. It was basically just kind of a curvature of a line. If you close the mouth and take the lip line, the center lip line, that's basically what you saw. And the ears were not pronounced as ours are and everything. It's closer and not stuck out. Communication was telepathic. It was a situation that you knew you were communicating, and that they were trying to let you know, as far as in my experience, that they weren't going to hurt me. There was communication, there were questions and answers, and it was a situation about what did I feel about them, and it's just as I told you. I think it is unique. I think it's exciting. I look forward to the experience again, and hope someday that I do have that experience again. As far as to climb on board and to go, I wouldn't have any hesitation whatsoever. None. I would do it in a second. In a heartbeat. And I'm just that excited about it.
Well, it's been about 7 years since I've been involved in UFO research, and it began when I met Dr. Jan Hynek. Dr. Hynek, as you know, is considered the father of UFOlogy. He was with Project Blue Book, the cataloging UFO cases with the Air Force. And Dr. Hynek was also the man who coined the phrases close encounters of the first, second, and third kind, which Spielberg used for his movie. Well, when I met Dr. Hynek, I had no experience at all or no background in UFOs, but here I was with the top scientists in the field, in the world, and he had over 100,000 cases of UFO reports on file and in his computer. We founded with Dr. Jan Hynek the International Center for UFO Research here in Scottsdale. We're beyond the point now of trying to prove that UFOs exist. We know UFOs exist. We know UFO contact is going on. What we're trying to ascertain now is why is a contact happening, who is contacting us, what are their purposes, and how do we get this information out to the people? Because the 90s are here. The 21st century is right around the corner. And it looks from all the evidence we've been able to gather that we're going to an age when there's going to be open contact on a global scale.
Our greatest fear is that if the idea of extraterrestrials is accepted, it will lead to total anarchy.
When people compare our system to how well the alien system works, it'll make the Watson Newark riots look like picnics. The whites and blacks will be in the street together, and they'll have guns.
The NRA has seen to that.
Excuse me. I've been listening with fascination to your discussion and debate. I think you're overlooking two of the most important situations when you're dealing with the extraterrestrials. Before we can even consider whether or not we want to communicate with them, or whether we should publicly acknowledge their existence, we must face the economic ramifications of these dealings.
Go on.
Number one, the stock market will collapse, leading to a worldwide depression. And number two, the world banking system will collapse.
The only alternative is to change the direction of business and scientific technology to help us to survive.
Like the guy who developed laser tech for SDI. He quit to develop medical technology to help people.
Well, once we acknowledge UFOs, we'll have to acknowledge their superior technology. They obviously are much further advanced than we are.
Yes.
Our products and skills will become useless in comparison to theirs. We'll become a third world planet used mostly for cheap labor and as consumers. There's nothing we have to offer the extraterrestrials they haven't already perfected. We want what they have. What we have, they won't want. The trade imbalance will be enormous.
That's true. The only thing that the aliens might want from us is our minerals and our natural resources.
Don't be too pessimistic. They might also want to learn about our humanity, to make use of our sexual, emotional, and psychological development.
What psychological development? What humanity? Are you talking about Hitler, Stalin, the Khmer Rouge, Ceausescu?
Don't forget, we are still a race that believes in a loving God.
So did Shaw, Marcos, Somoza, and Noriega.
Gentlemen, let's be a little more kind and gentle with each other. I don't want this to deteriorate into a religious issue. Morality has nothing to do with it.
The President is right. We just want to find a solution that works. Let's not get all hung up on philosophy and spiritualism, please.
That's what this meeting should be about.
I want to get back to economic issues. You predict disaster if we open communications with the extraterrestrials?
Yes. It's economically unfeasible.
Unless we can defeat them militarily and take over their resources.
Now, in reality, we don't know what kind of weapons they have. They haven't tried to use any on us yet. But when we shot at UFOs over the ocean, they neutralized our weapons, and the weapons didn't function.
When did this happen? You never informed us.
I didn't have to. It's Navy business.
Navy business? It's our business. I mean, why shoot at them when we need their spacecraft in one piece in order to examine it?
My job is to defend this country, sir. It's more important than collecting exhibits for a museum.
But you could have ruined the possibility of terrific scientific advances.
First and foremost, it is our duty to protect the interests of the United States.
1962年2月20日、ジョン・ブレンがマーキュリー線で航行中、3機の未確認飛行物体が船尾から近づき、追い越していったのを目撃している。1962年5月24日、スコット・カーペンターはホタルのような飛行物体を目撃、カメラに収めることに成功した。1964年10月12日、3人のソ連宇宙飛行士は迅速に飛ぶディスク上の未確認飛行物体に囲まれたと報告している。1968年12月21日、アポロ8号に登場するフランク・ボールマンとジム・ラベルは UFO が我々の上空10マイルに出現したと基地に伝える。1969年11月14日、アポロ12号のピート・コンラッド、アラン・ビーン、ディック・ゴードンは UFO が月まで13万2000マイルの行程を我々より少し先行して飛行したと話した。デビッド・フロニング、彼は航空宇宙学エンジニアであり、25年もの間、超宇宙推進システムの研究開発に専念している人物である。広大な宇宙、我々人間の宇宙への探求の思いは果てしない。しかし、人間が宇宙を自在に移動するために克服しなければならないことは、サウンドバリア、音速障壁、ヒートバリア、熱障壁である。非常に速い速度で物体が移動すると、その摩擦力で鉄を溶かしてしまうのだ。そして第3に、ライトバリア、光障壁を克服しなければならない。遠く離れた宇宙の星々へ行くためには、光の速度でさえ何万年、何億年もかかるのだ。しかし、UFO はそんな星からやってくるのである。何億年もの昔、火星はかつて地球が辿ってきたのと同じような過程で形成されたという。大気が激しい風と嵐によって生まれ、火山の噴火によって母なる大地が出来上がり、そして海が作られた。こうして火星は生命の住める惑星になったのだ。しかし、次第に雨は止み、海は枯れていった。とうとう火星は荒れ果てた惑星へと変化した。今、火星のクレーターは、かつて栄えた文明の遺物らしいピラミッドのような形をした物体に囲まれ、巨大な炎が燃えている。それらを創造した生物は今どこへ行ったのだろう。果たして地球にもそういった時が来てしまうのだろうか。宇宙開発の先駆者でジェット推進局研究所の創設者ジョン・パーソンズ。彼の未亡人は夫の事故死に疑問を投げかける。その実態とは。
My husband died in 1952 in very mysterious circumstances. Our house was blown up on the eve of our departure from the country. After 2 years of investigation by the FBI, we had decided to leave the country. And I never saw my husband's body. It has been suggested that the whole explosion was a cover-up to get him either taken as a hostage, or there's been many fantastic theories, because he was the most, foremost figure in space exploration, very valuable person to governments. It was not until 7 years later, after his death, when the capital of the United States was not attacked, but many UFOs circled around the Capitol building, and the Air Force was sent up to chase them, and this was some sensational news. We are going beyond the limitations and the barriers set up by Christianity concerning death. This is the prime truth that we have to establish before we can go into space. Our whole conception of time is being changed. Ultimately, this will bring us to another awareness of direction. I believe that we are being reunited with the matriarchal view of the world, which is circular, and that there is no end to anything. We have been functioning for some time as if we believed the world was based on a straight line, and if we followed that straight line, we would arrive at some destination far from us. But this is the basis of Einstein's theory, is that all things return to their origin. And this is fundamentally what the matriarchy is all about. The restoration of the circular concept of reality. So seeing ourselves from space makes us realize that there is no beginning and no ending. The sun no longer comes up in the morning, and it doesn't die at night anymore. We are out in space, and this is the first step to space exploration. This lifts us out of the confines of the physical world. Eventually, we're going to have to face a new relationship to our physical bodies, because obviously we can't take our physical bodies with us. That's what they're trying to do, is transfer the physical body out there, and it won't go. All the things that we intuitively expect, we relegate it to the after-death state, but it's actually, it's actually ever present. We promise ourselves paradise, when paradise is immediate. The earth itself is the source of everything we need.
Within the last 20 years, I've focused on this particular area of trying to answer the questions, who are we, where do we come from? Zecharia Sitchin's information goes like this. If you interpret all of that information, aliens landed here. They were humanoid, taller and huskier than we are, that looked very much like we do. They came from the last planet in our solar system that now NASA and JPL is looking for. They came down, splashed down in the Persian Gulf with rocket-based technology 450,000 years ago. They literally spliced their genes with Homo erectus genes, and here we are. We have close probably to 1.5 million pieces of artifact evidence of alien presence on this earth since 450,000 years ago, and that those aliens genetically created us.
Whenever you look into history, you can find every civilization on this planet has had a tie to some star that they feel their ancestors originated in. Most of them have a direct tie to the Pleiades. The Hopi up here in northern Arizona call the Pleiades Chohocan, and Chohocan means Pleiades. They say this is where they return after they've died. The Egyptian connection to the stars is remarkable, absolutely remarkable. The goddess Nut and Geb, who created the planet according to ancient Egyptian religion and belief, one was to be from the Pleiades, the other was Earth. And all of this interlocking belief in not only the sun, but the stars as well, really brought about a remarkable thing. It's just that people are afraid to come forward and say what they want to say and say what they've seen or discuss it. I think in the 90s, that's going to begin to change. With the sighting that took place in Russia not too long ago, that's opened a lot of people's minds. All of a sudden, the Soviet Union, which is the most closed country, at least we've been raised to believe that, has suddenly come out and in their press said a UFO landed. And there are witnesses to this. So when that begins to happen, I think it's going to take a completely different perspective for everyone on this planet. I think that our science and our technology is going to get to a point where we begin to understand that we have to do what all of these ETs are telling us we have to do, and that's balance nature and ourselves, and to become more or less harmonious with our surroundings and ourselves, not to create the destruction. So I think that the 90s is going to open a wonderful door for us.
We have top secret classified files on airline pilots, business executives, teachers, scientists, priests, all of whom claim to have been taken aboard UFOs.
We've had them examined by top psychiatrists. We put them under hypnosis, given them lie detector tests and truth drugs. They're completely sane, other than the obvious stress induced by their experiences and the scorn of their peers.
We've done experiments with contactees who are withdrawn and under severe mental stress from their experiences. When sounds recorded from the UFOs are played to them, they become cheerful and more open and recover quickly. We don't know what the sounds mean, but they seem to reassure the contactees that they're all right. Their experiences that they're trying to block out are for real, believe me. They're not crazy.
They've really been on spaceships, though. There's no doubt about it.
Their experiences are filled with different details, but there are remarkable similarities in the most important basics. They're strangers to one another, so there's no chance they could have influenced each other or been subject to mass hysteria.
They're not out for money or fame. In fact, most of them we have to forcibly coerce in order to interview or test them. We have to drag the truth out of them. All they want is to be left alone.
Extraterrestrials want to make us focus on the very real problems on Earth, like the environment, starvation, disease. Well, we've been told that the extraterrestrials are particularly concerned about the destruction of the ozone layer and the Brazilian rainforest, the pollution in the oceans, excess use of chemicals, and the deteriorating condition of our nuclear plants.
There have been plenty of other planets that have disappeared over the millenniums and life forms that have become extinct. They're worried about how the Earth affects the solar system and universe as a whole.
The extraterrestrials have shown no desire to hurt us.
A number of people we interviewed claimed to be taken aboard the ship involuntarily, but some went by choice. Most wound up feeling grateful for the opportunity once they went back home, of course. But few were furious, terrified, scared.
The theory is that there are races of extraterrestrials dying out, whether from disease, inbreeding, or other unknown factors. They are desperate to perpetuate their species, and they need new blood and new genes to do it.
Well, women may be used for breeding to bear alien babies. Men may be used because extraterrestrials are sterile. We just don't know.
There's rumors that all this talk about seeding women may be part of our disinformation campaign.
Well, contactees are returned to Earth to act as interface between their culture and ours.
The extraterrestrials seem capable of wiping out a person's memory of their abduction. We have had to hypnotize some of them to find out what happened on the UFO.
We've been keeping files on a number of UFO groups for the purpose of national security. Now, these groups want us to release our classified documents to the press.
Now, there could be a security leak. Somebody's secretary or lover.
A lot more people are listening. We have astronauts who firmly believe in UFOs and extraterrestrials. They've seen them.
Well, a lot of people claim to have seen God. We have to turn down hundreds of requests for sainthood and thousands of cases of miracles every year.
You burn such people at the stake and proclaim them saints in a couple of 100 years, or they become corporate raiders.
As long as we have negative, paranoid sensationalists who want to make a quick buck and act like Nazis, this whole movement's going to remain a cult.
Hundreds of people sighted boomerang-shaped UFOs in Brewster, New York. The local papers reported it, but the news never made it west of the Mississippi.
We have people at every news source to stop stories from leaking out.
We have to remain militarily prepared, especially if the extraterrestrials try to rescue us.
We must not allow the idea of superior life forms to start our people questioning their belief in higher religious authorities or to challenge the moral system that we have set up for them over the ages.
We shouldn't lose track of all the potential positive effects of communication with them. They may have solved the problems of disease and aging. We can learn a tremendous amount from them in medicine, psychology, science, education, and even human relations. How to deal with each other in peace.
Are you willing to take that risk? If we don't blow them out of the sky, they will blow us away. Are you willing to risk the planet?
Yes.